you so much for joining us. I am Lindsay Recknell, a mental health skills trainer and the fortunate to be the MC at the upcoming HRPA Summer Conference on July 25th titled HR for HR, all about how you can be an HR superhero. I have my friends Diane and Chris from the HRPA here with me today. Hello, lovely humans.
Hello, Lindsay.
It is so it is so awesome to have you both here. I'm so excited for this conference. This is your annual seasonal conference for the summertime, and the topic of HR for HR, I feel like couldn't be more timely. Unbelievably amazing. Before we get too far into it, I'd love if the two of you would introduce yourself, and maybe Diane, you're on my left. We'll start with you if you don't mind. Tell us who you are and what you do with HRPA.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So at HRPA, I am the lead for HR and learning, and I do a whole range of things. I help to do the basics, keeping the lights on in HR. I work with Chris on strategy pieces and different surveys.
Oh, an HR professional that wears lots of hats. Weird.
Yes.
That doesn't resonate at all.
Okay. Perfect.
Chris, who are you and what do you do, my friend?
Well, Lindsay, Diane, lovely to see you both again. So I'm Chris Tierney. I'm the Vice President of HR and Learning at the HRPA. So I think I have a pretty terrific job because I get to work with great people like both of you and many, many others. So in my world at the HRPA, I get to lead and practice all of our internal HR strategies and operations because HRPA is an employer. We're not just the professional regulator and association for HR. So we have our own team of employees, and I get to work with great people like Diane in that effort. And then the other part of my job is I bring all of these terrific learning experiences and education to our HRPA members and HR professionals everywhere, which gives me the chance to work with great people like you, Lindsay. So I have the best of both worlds in my role.
Oh, so good. And it is such a pleasure to work with the both of you and HRPA because you do offer such incredible programming like this conference. I would love to know, how did you choose and why did you choose the topic of HR for HR? I feel like this must come from a pretty personal place. And I don't know who wants to start. Yeah.
I'll jump in on that one because I think I'll take the blame or the credit depending on your point of view. But I think for myself, I just was really thinking about it earlier this year. And I thought, you know what? HR professionals have been through a lot. We all have, like businesses, workers, everybody has been through a lot, but I think that HR was really thrust into a certain spotlight with really high demands from all different directions in their roles over the last few years. And now that we are catching our breath, I think we've officially come out of the pandemic, at least in most regions of the world now. But I think there's some TLC that we need to pay attention. And I've been using the analogy of when you're on the airplane, the oxygen mask comes down, you need to put on your own mask before you can help others. And I think HR has forgotten about that a little bit, or has been so focused on other people that it's time to focus on ourselves. And so HRPA, as the HR Professionals Association, it just felt like it was the natural fit and the right time to give back to our profession and these HR professionals in this way. I have lots more to say on that, but that's kind of in a nutshell the impetus behind it.
Oh, that feels so hopeful. I feel like any HR professional that's listening maybe finally feels like, yes, something for me, because as HR professionals, so many of us are caretakers of other people. And so it feels really good to flip the script, so to speak, and have a little spotlight on taking care of ourselves. And I know, Diane, that is something that's resonating very strongly with you these days. Tell us why you're excited about the topic for this conference.
Absolutely. I've been in HR for over 20 years, and I've spent a lot of my career without a lot of mentorship and guidance and leadership directly. And so I've had to always come up with the solutions and fix the problems and all of that all on my own. And it's natural for me to do that, not just at work, but at home too. And my mother would say, you are all things to all people all the time. And so I have that natural tendency to do that. And it's getting to the point where I realize I really need to take care of me as well. And I need to put some things into place, getting back to yoga, maybe looking at counseling, maybe some meditation or affirmations or gratitudes. There's so many different things that we can do to just help to take care of our own soul. And I'll go back to Chris's analogy of putting that oxygen mask on first. I would be masking up the whole plane before I got to myself. So it's time to flip that and really demonstrate what I'm trying to teach others to do as well. So it's time for me also.
That feels so powerful. And as I'm hearing you describe like all these things that you're doing to try to support your own well-being, I'm thinking, so self-care is not just candles and bubble baths?
Right? Definitely.
Yeah. I just want to capture that, because I think that is still, for a lot of people, what they think about when we say, self-care and give yourself a little bit of that, TLC, and they just think, oh, that means just go sit, put your feet up and read a book for half an hour, like take a break. And self-care is ongoing, it's continuous, it requires, like everything in our lives, attention and practice. And I heard a great quote the other day about every day we're practicing. Everything we do is practice. It's a dress rehearsal. We're never perfected. And so, it's the same about self-care, and that it's something that we need to be aware of and practice every day. And it's multifaceted, lots of different ways. What works for Diane is not going to work for me, and what works for me is not going to work for you, Lindsay. And so it's individualized, it's personalized, and it requires our attention on a regular and ongoing basis. So,
but Chris, I just want to be good. Why do I know to practice?
I know. Listen, I'm with you. Yeah. Practice makes permanent, not practice makes perfect.
Ooh, I like that. Something you said there really resonated with me. It's that idea of not one size fits all, because, you come to these conferences, you hear from these experts, and not this conference, but other ones, obviously, that the experts say, you have to do this, you must do this, this is the only way. I feel like that's the beauty of the speakers and the content that you curate at the HRPA is they put out the ideas. They say, this is what's worked for me. This is what science says has worked. This is what has worked in organizations similar to yours. Try it, see how you go, and come back and try something different, which is kind of the beauty of my experience with your conferences. Is that intentional? Like, do you look for those kinds of people in your conferences?
Absolutely. Without it. No, in all sincerity, we do. And I think the idea, especially with our conferences, is to provide inspiration, is to get people thinking. It's to open people's minds to potential and possibility. It's not to prescribe solutions. So it is more about awareness, education from a broad point of view. But we really hope that people leave our HRPA conferences armed with information that they can then think about and maybe do a little bit more research, a little bit more education on, and find the right path that's going to work for them or work in their organizations, whatever the case may be. And it's no different with this summer conference, even though the focus is a little bit varied from what we would normally do, and it's more focused on HR professionals themselves, the people behind the profession, rather than the skills that go into the profession. But I do want to just say, as an HR executive, this is the type of event that I would not only send my team to as a bit of a recognition, reward, maybe even like a team event, a team experience, but the programming for this event is all super relevant programming that's going to be practical in an organizational context as well. It's not super individual. in the overall scope and range of the speakers and the expertise, and like individuals like you, for example, Lindsay, like yes, you're going to talk to people individually through the camera, but the information can be applied into different contexts and different settings as well.
Right. So it's to support the HR professional themselves and for them to take back and kind of spread the good words and spread the good knowledge that they learn to help out their organization as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I would say the fact that we have, for our designated members at HRPA and others who have designations, we have CPD pre-approval. So the content going into this program is relevant to HR practice and HR capability as much as it's relevant to individual self-care.
Oh, so not only is it good for your soul, it's also good for your pocketbook, is what you're saying.
That's right. We're holistic.
Diane, tell me, so Chris mentioned that this is for HR professionals because we are wanting to support those fine folks in the trenches doing the work, especially over the last 3 years. Yeah. Can you describe that person to me, the person that'll really get the best out of this conference as far as how they might be feeling right now, what problems the conference information might solve for them?
Absolutely. And so, some of this Chris has touched on already with respect to it being not just for that HR professional, but something that you can take back to the organization. And we often are asked the question, we have employees coming to us saying, I need help, I'm not feeling great. And so if we take on some of these tools or practice some of the learnings coming out of this conference, we'll be able to share, similar, this worked for me, give that a try. Not to take over the job of a counselor, for sure.
Thank you. Important. Yes, excellent.
Yes. But I think that there's a whole range of emotions. I know for myself, coming through the pandemic, it was challenging. It embarked on a place of unknown, and it almost leveled the playing field a little bit across HR. It sort of didn't matter what level you were at. You were supporting the organization, you were coming up with solutions, you're supporting individuals, and you didn't have all the answers. So you had to try and figure things out on the fly. And that can be exhilarating and interesting and rewarding in itself, but it can also be very draining. And so we're now, as we've talked about, sort of approaching the end or have reached the end of the pandemic. And I don't know, I know for myself, when I get into a major situation, I buckle down, I get the job done, I focus in, and then when it's over, then I can feel or weep or grieve it or whatever those feelings are that are coming up. And so maybe it's, really timely right now where we're sort of coming down from all of that exhilaration and now really feeling things. And so everything has changed. Our level of professionalism, even to some degree, has changed. And so we're more open with how we're showing up, how we're feeling, and that's all new territory. So I don't know, that's kind of a lot of different feelings thrown at you to help to answer that question, I hope.
Beautiful. Yes. Well, great. And the reason I was asking is I want the folks who are listening to us to think, yes, this is for me, because I am also exhausted and motivated and have been elevated in my career, but on the flip side are feeling like I don't have all the answers yet I'm expected to, and all of that kind of thing. So you absolutely shared who that this conference is for, which is exactly why I was asking. So thank you very much for that. On the kind of elevate our career topic, one of the things that I really like about how HR has evolved over the last 3 years in particular is that we've become more of that strategic partner, that business partner at the table. Talk to me about what you think HR professionals are experiencing having been challenged in that way. If you have a sense of what that might be like for people out there, because I feel like a lot of the agenda for the conference really addresses how do we support now that we're in this new place. So talk a little bit about what you feel like HR is experiencing from that perspective, if you could.
Yeah, I'll just say that, first of all, it's a great question, because I think anybody in the profession, but also outside of the profession right now, recognizes the massive shift within the HR profession. But what I would say is maybe two things. One, we know within the HR profession that what we're being asked to deliver and the problems we're being asked to solve in our organizations, we may not be fully equipped to do. And so that's adding, I think, stress. There's this, the notion of imposter syndrome, I think, may be happening across the profession. I'm not going to hypothesize, but I think what we're being asked to do and expected to do now is so dramatically different than it was 3 years ago. We haven't spent the last 3 years like dramatically upskilling and preparing for these requests, the frequency and the depth of these requests that are coming in now and the expectations. So that's adding stress on us as HR professionals, because we're like, oh no, they need me to help them solve this problem. I've never solved this problem before, not at this complexity or at this level. So I think that's one thing that we're seeing is the demands have shifted, but maybe those in the profession are not fully prepared for that. And that's okay. Listen, we all learn on the fly and we can all be resourceful, but let's not deny that it adds stress. And it makes it more stressful for us. And the other thing is, and this has existed for a decade or more, and if you look at our HR competency framework through the HRPA, it's this lovely little, it's a purple and gold looking disc, essentially. There are 9 core competencies in that framework and 15 enabling competencies. That's 24 competencies. Within each one of those competencies is anywhere from 3 to 5 specific skills or activities. In my opinion, there is no other job in an organization as complex and as varied on a day-to-day basis as the HR professional, with the exception of maybe the CEO. Simply the inability to fully script your workday so that it's within your control and you have that sense of autonomy over where, when, and why you're spending your time, quite frankly, does not exist within the HR profession. But that's always been there. So here's where we are today. We've always been balancing these 24 competencies and all the underlying skills that go into that, the variation and the lack of control of our day-to-day work. And now we're being asked to solve super complex, highly strategic enterprise problems related to people and talent. And maybe we're not fully prepared to do that. Holy, caught between a rock and a hard place, right?
Oh my heavens. Oh my heavens. And there's an expectation that you just know because HR people know.
Yeah.
Or they are also human, by the way.
Yeah.
Not superhuman.
Well, and I'll tell you a behavior that I've had to learn, and I'm practicing every day, is when somebody comes to me with a question or needs my help with a solution, I'm trying to train myself to not try to solution it in that moment, but to say, I will give you better advice if I take a couple of days to think about this, and then I'll come back to you. But that's a learned behavior because HR people want to solve problems. We want to be that system within the organization. So, I mean, all of these things just add more layers of stress and complexity into our daily lives. So we just need to hit pause for a moment and think about, are we taking our care of ourselves at this time so that we can be better for ourselves, better for the people around us?
Time to
Boundaries?
take a
What?
breath.
Yeah. Boundaries. Yeah. What are those?
But that's the thing, right? Like boundaries are that breathing space to say, I will absolutely solve your problem. Just give me a minute.
Yeah.
And that's okay. I think one of the things I'm most looking forward to at the conference is kind of that permission to say, I just need time to absorb and get back to you. Because I don't know, HR people can be people pleasers. I am a recovering people pleaser myself. And we just want, like you say, Chris, we want to solve the problems. We want to help all of the people. We have typically the biggest hearts out there to serve people. I mean, to serve people is a hard job because, people are messy and complicated and have all of their own emotions that we have to deal with as well. But for so long, I feel like there's been an expectation that we have to be everything to everyone, Diane, as you mentioned. And it's time that we get to set those boundaries. And so often we just don't know how. And I know that there's going to be that theme throughout the whole show on the 25th to get some of those skills, which I'm super excited about. Diane, I was going to ask you, so you were talking a little bit about feelings, and that used to be a super uncomfortable topic for me. Emotions and feelings at work. Come on. So tell me, if there's anybody on this, listening to this show that's thinking, I don't want to come to a conference and talk about feelings. Can we talk about the nice balance that there's going to be, the integration between our emotions, but also the evidence and science to support the things we're talking about?
Absolutely. HRPA will never disappoint. If you've been to any of our conferences this year, which I'm sure many of you have, you'll see that the lineup of speakers absolutely brings their best. They're experts in their field, and they're coming with the tools to not only help the HR professionals themselves, but again, to bring that back to their workplaces, to their home lives. This notion of bringing your whole self to work as well is, I'm not sure that all businesses are really embracing that fully. And so, creating that balance, as you said, between that. And so listening to the speakers that are coming to the conference, they will provide the tools that you need for your own personal life so that you can be all things to all people again, if that's even a thing. I'm not sure why we do that. But yes, there will be an amazing balance between tools and some feelings as well. I mean, we do need to address them, and
Totally.
We can't keep ignoring that. We're asked to do things, as Chris has said, that is way we're not prepared for often. People are messy, as you said, Lindsay, and so that takes its toll. And it's okay to be a real human. And I think that's really come out a lot through the pandemic, is just really showing up and being okay with, how are we feeling today? And let's check in. And maybe today's not the day to redesign a program, but it's to just deal with some of the day-to-day things in your inbox or work quietly. And so I think there will be a lot of tools that the conference will provide the professionals in the room.
Feels so good. I can't even wait. What is your most anticipated session from the conference, if I could put you on the spot?
Diane, you go.
We have ones around compassion fatigue. We're talking about big ideas and how to make transformation in your life, radical self-care. We've got some energy breaks, like actual wellness breaks, which is very cool and so not common in typical conferences. We're talking about self-awareness and our thinking preferences, those kinds of things. Is there anything that's particularly tweaking your interest?
Oh, it's so hard to choose because there's so many great things, but I'm really looking forward to Michelle Bailey's session on the big idea.
Mm.
I personally, I tend to often get stuck in the little nitty gritties, the minutia of the day, and I leave my big pieces, my big boulders, as I like to refer to them. Oh, the quarter's almost done. Quick, I need to get my boulder in there. And yet then I'm not leaving myself enough time. So I'm really interested around this big idea and how can I take my big boulders and work through a process to make sure I'm hitting my goals, and not just supporting everyone else all the time.
Michelle Bailey's workshop, which is titled My Big Idea, Fueling Your Journey, Making Positive Change in Your Personal and Professional Life. Talk about integration. Awesome.
Right?
Yeah, super exciting. Chris, do you have a hot topic in mind?
Well, Lindsay, can I just say yours?
You can, in fact.
Is it too obvious? Is it too much? But honestly, what I love about your sessions, Lindsay, is they're really evidence informed. So you use good, like solid research and data to back up these ideas. And one of your key messages that I've heard you deliver is normalizing talking about self-care, about mental health in our workplaces. And self-care is an element of mental health, right? Like if that's important, the two kind of go hand in hand. And so, HR needs to talk about their own self-care, their own mental health practices, to demonstrate that it is safe to do so. And it's okay to talk about it. And we all have times, whether it's, the ebbs and flows in terms of when we might need support. So I always look forward to your sessions. I had to put that in there. But the other one that really resonates with me is the compassion fatigue session, because I think that really is going to hit the nail on the head for many HR professionals right now, and what we've been experiencing, and even what Diane was describing in terms of you take care of the issue in your workplace, you put your own feelings away, and then you deal with your feelings about that later. And a lot of those feelings are rooted in compassion and empathy for the people that are impacted in our workplaces by different decisions that are happening. And so compassion fatigue for me, it resonates for sure.
Oh. And I love that language of compassion. Chris, you mentioned like language is my jam. I feel like the words we use, the language that we put out into the world can help to be the most destigmatizing way to move through the world. And that language of compassion is one of those transformation words that I think has moved from quite a place of stigma, of weakness, of soft skills. Do not get me on my soapbox about soft skills. These are mental health skills. These are real life skills. And so I'm also really looking forward to Shauna Percy's compassion fatigue. And I think that's probably language, the compassion fatigue, probably language that not many people are super familiar with.
Yeah.
We'll be familiar with the feeling, Diane, but
Yes.
I don't think we're super familiar with the language and the actual chemical impact of compassion and the desire to relieve suffering, and how that actually impacts our psychological, physiological, biological body. So I'm very excited about that. And thank you for recognizing the evidence-based topic that I get to speak about at the very beginning of the conference, because I am one of the original skeptics. I did not like talking about these things. And so the fact that I even work in this mental health space now feels super transformational. And so I know that folks that come out of this conference will also feel that sense of empowerment, that sense of, yes, I can do this thing and I can feel better. I can contribute in the ways that I want to contribute to. I don't have to stay burnt out. I can recover from that also. I am super looking forward to this.
Yeah.
Do you have any final parting thoughts you'd like to share with the audience about the conference?
Yeah, I do. I always do. And so anybody who has joined and has been listening to our conversation or watching our conversation, whatever the case may be, and maybe they've tuned us out, I want you to snap back your attention right now, because what I want to say to you about this and the content for the summer conference, it's not frivolous. It is not fluff. It is not, whatever. Like it's mental wellness, mental well-being is a major workplace issue in our workplaces today. So while we've designed the content for this program to really focus and provide some tools to HR professionals and to the others who attend. I mean, it's not just for HR professionals. Anybody can attend this
all
summer
the humans.
conference. All the humans. But from a people point of view, we know that mental illness costs our organizations billions of dollars every year. This is a very real, topical, highly strategic issue in our organization. So for anybody who might look at the program and go, meh, I think they're really kind of missing the point a little bit about the criticality of this topic and continuing to talk about this and bring support and solutions into our organizations, not just for us as individuals, but for our entire organizations, because it's costing our companies a lot of money, never mind the human impact, the socioeconomic impact of that. But I mean, there's just a business case for this. So I just wanted to, I will get off my soapbox on that now, but I just wanted to throw that in there. So hopefully I've snapped people back to attention.
So good. So good. Diane, what do you got as your last final parting thought?
How can I follow that?
What Chris said.
Yes. I want you to also come to this conference. I want you to put your phones away. I want you to put all your media aside. I want you to block off your schedule. Let your leaders know you are not available that day, and just really get up close and personal with the tools, with the learnings, with yourself. Be there for yourself. This is for you. Yes, bring it back to your organization. I'm just taking the different spin from Chris. Yeah. It's but just really show up. Snap into attention, be there for yourself, and hold that space and honor yourself through this conference.
You all have permission. You've heard it from the leaders of the HR Association that, is the authority in your profession. So if they can't give you permission, I don't know where else you're going to get it. So I'm just saying. Lovely humans, thank you so much for being here. It is always a pleasure to have a conversation with you. And I'm super motivated and inspired for the conference coming up in 4 short weeks, really. So if you don't have your ticket yet, I don't know what you're waiting for. Please, hrpa.ca. Professional development is a menu at the top. We will also have a link in the show notes of this video for sure. Watch for it in your newsletter, watch for it in social media. It will be in all the places. We'll so look forward to seeing you there. Thank you for joining us. Diane and Chris, as always, it's a pleasure.
Awesome.
Wonderful. Thanks, Lindsay.
Take care.
Bye.